Squirrels are known for saving, but with the help of AARP, they won't be the only ones. From planning to budgeting, AARP is here to help you stretch your dollar further. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you right here on ESPN Radio, as I love to do every weekday. 250-plus markets across the United States of America. Just last week, we included Houston, Texas, and San Antonio, Texas into the mix. Welcome aboard. Plus, we're on ESPN Radio, Sirius XM style, Channel 80. This show is being brought to you by Weston. Remember, Weston knows how disruptive travel can be to your well-being. But with rejuvenating heavenly beds and nutritious superfoods RX menu and gear lending for when you leave your workout gear at home, Weston will help you stay in control and rise above it all. Weston, let's rise. Learn more at Weston.com. We got a lot of stuff to get into today, okay? We got the news from Adam Schefter about how Brady hasn't committed to the 2018 NFL season. What's going on in New England? What's the problem there? We got that stuff to get into. We got to get into what transpired last night in Portland, Oregon with Drew Holiday. Not Damian Lillard, not C.J. McCollum, but Drew Holiday and Rajon Rondo, the backcourt of New Orleans, winning the first two games in Portland. And is on the brink of pushing Portland to the brink of elimination, courtesy of a sweep. I mean, it's unbelievable what's going on with these NBA playoffs. Of course, Boston. There's a new star in town. It was supposed to be Gordon Hayward, but he went out first game of the season. It was supposed to be Kyrie Irving, but he got hurt and he's out for the playoffs. This brother named Jaylen Brown is just putting on a show. Greek Freak ain't bad. He's balling. Middleton is not bad. He's balling. But they have no help in Milwaukee whatsoever. We'll be talking about that as the show progresses. And, of course, the great Mel Kiper Jr., a week away from the NFL draft, seems like folks are gravitating towards the mock drafts that he put out there. And it's going to be real interesting to see how things unfold. Evidently, the Jets might end up getting themselves a star quarterback. I'll explain what I'm talking about in just a couple of minutes. Because remember, Mel Kiper Jr. is coming on hour number 2 to talk to us about this stuff. And I can't wait to drop some knowledge with y'all about what's transpiring. Can't wait to share that with y'all as well. So that's something to stick around. Of course, the New York Giants might end up getting Saquon Barkley. I'll tell you why that is as well. Bradley Chubb, who's going to be a top 5 pick in this NFL draft. His ability to get at the passer. Remember, Von Miller came out and said he's a cross between himself and Khalil Mack. So he'll be on with us about 30 minutes past this hour. Can't wait to holler at him as well. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. I got New York on my mind right now. I got New York on my mind just for this moment because as we speak, Mark Jackson, former head coach for the Golden State Warriors, basketball analyst and commentator extraordinaire for the ESPN ABC family, is sitting down with the New York Knicks interviewing for their head coaching job. I don't know if it's this second, but I know today is the day he's talking to them. And I can tell you this right now, and I'm unapologetic about this. I don't understand for the life of me how people seem to have a struggle comprehending what the hell I'm talking about. I really, really don't understand it. Just in case I didn't say it yet, it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless, best phones, best networks, no contracts. I'm serious about this. I'm not joking. I'm about as serious about this as I am about that damn trust the process, which gets on my last damn nerves. No wonder you got the commissioner having to address tanking. I have no problem with a team that knows that it's lost for this season and it's got about 10 meaningless games left, and everybody knows it. Trying to position themselves to get the highest draft pick possible. I understand that. Trusted the process. They threw seasons. It's bad for sports. It's un-American. And don't get me started with the racial components of it all, because I don't know of a black man that would have the license to lose on purpose for 3 consecutive years and still be gainfully employed. I don't know it. I don't know that. So let me be very clear about it. I can't stand to trust the process. But just as much as I can't stand trust the process, I can't stand what I'm hearing with all of this debate, this chitter-chatter about Mark Jackson and the New York Knicks job. And let me say this. He's not the only qualified candidate. David Fisdale is a qualified candidate. Doc Rivers, if he ended up leaving the Clippers, would be a qualified candidate. Mike Woodson, assistant coach for the Los Angeles Clippers. As far as I'm concerned, he deserves to be a head coach in this league again. He got hosed here in New York. Last time New Yorkers enjoyed any kind of success with the New York Knicks, Mike Woodson was the coach. They went 54-28. They won their first Atlantic Division crown in 13 years. Mike Woodson was at the helm. In the following season, when they struggled, players were injured. Tyson Chandler's mother was battling cancer. He wasn't even practicing with the team. You had a situation where the one thing that James Dolan is really, really great about is taking care of players. So when Tyson Chandler had to go home to his mom in California, he didn't practice with the team, and after every single game he played, James Dolan had a jet pick him up before the game and take him back home after the game. All season long, that's what he did for Tyson Chandler, which it was incredibly generous. But those are the conditions under which Mike Woodson was working with. So anybody that thinks that Mike Woodson can't coach or Mike Woodson doesn't deserve another head coaching job, pump your brakes. I'm not questioning what anybody's qualifications are. Jeff Van Gundy should be in the mix, even though he'd never be back in New York, not as long as James Dolan is there, because of how he walked out on James Dolan, even though he made the right decision in doing so. Which brings me back to Mark Jackson. I am sick and tired of folks not comprehending what the hell this is all about. The New York Knicks job is not just about basketball. The New York Knicks job is about something far greater. The New York Knicks job is about a culture. A culture that has been severely compromised, severely contaminated by the whole James Dolan regime. And I'm not trying to sit up here and pour salt on James Dolan, because bottom line, ladies and gentlemen, is that I firmly believe that owners, you cut the check. As long as they cut the check and they're not shy about doing so, I don't hold anything against them. The problem is that James Dolan isn't just a basketball owner. He's a hockey owner. He's owner of Cablevision, Madison Square Garden. I mean, look, this guy has a lot of tentacles. And I believe because of how he runs his ship, it gets in the way of basketball. You got players watching their back because, you got PR folks standing next to them every time they talking to the media. Scared to say anything, wondering whether their phones are tapped. And folks can see their text messages and all. I'm trying to tell you what I know. I've had this told to me over the years. Now, that doesn't make it true, but it's been told to me. And when you have that kind of environment that's so invasive and so paranoid, because no one would ever deny that the Knicks have both an invasive and a paranoid environment, that doesn't ingratiate you with the modern day player, particularly in an age where you don't need to be in a large market in order to make your money. So because of that, the culture in New York City has eroded. Because of that, it has been nightmarish. Because of that, you have a difficult time getting people wanting to come here. Because of it, it's a miserable job for most people who are here. Because if you got options, why take this? It's cold as hell half the time. Taxes are through the roof. Only LA's worse. But unlike LA, It don't have the sunshine and the palm trees and Rodeo Drive. The bright lights of Broadway don't mean too much when it's blizzards outside or swirling winds and freezing temperatures. And when the team is devoid of any kind of tradition worth mattering, that really, really matters, because they haven't won a title since 1973. Why did you think that Adam Silver, the commissioner in the NBA, depressed me yesterday with his departing comments? Because he was celebrating the NBA despite the fact that teams in New York, LA, and Chicago, top 3 markets, 5 separate teams, not a single playoff team. But the NBA is still thriving. He's absolutely right. That's something to celebrate. That's something to applaud. Unless you're a New Yorker. More specifically, a New York Knicks fan. Then it's enough to get you depressed. And that's what we're talking about here. The New York Knicks, as an organization, has been an abomination. There's no other way to slice this. They're awful. Have they moved in the right direction? I think so. With Steve Mills back at the helm, with Scott Perry as his GM, of course they have. But they are a basketball abomination. There's no way to slice this. Throughout the years, because of James Dolan's heavy-handedness about things primarily to do with business as opposed to basketball, but it gets in the way of basketball because it's something that preoccupies the basketball franchise from doing the things it needs to do. You have what you have. And oh, by the way, don't be fooled. They brought Isaiah Thomas in here. Isaiah Thomas's marching orders were to try to get LeBron. He never got an opportunity to finish the job. And at some point in time, it was time for a change. There's no denying that. I know Isaiah Thomas. I love him like a brother. It was time for him to go. And he knows that. I told him that. He was taking on too much. His mom was ill. Stephon Marbury had moved right around the corner from him. I mean, you couldn't make this stuff up. There was just too many things that had nothing to do with basketball that were nightmarish. The whole Nuka Brown Sanders scandal with Madison Square Garden, we all know about that. No need to belabor that. But then you bring in Donnie Walsh with Mike D'Antoni. Mike D'Antoni knows basketball, at least on the offensive side of the ball. Now that he's got Bizdelic as an associate head coach in Houston, they know defense too, but I digress. The point is, when he was here in New York with Donnie Walsh is an executive that knows what the hell he's doing. But he had aged. And when it's time to talk to LeBron James, and Dolan walks in talking about Wall Street, and D'Antoni, not that he was here at that particular moment in time, but you don't have but so much. Or Donnie Walsh, who at the time was in a wheelchair. The reality is that it didn't make for the most attractive situation. And then when you brought Phil Jackson in here, what happened? Phil Jackson never wanted the job. I've reported this on many occasions. He never wanted the job. But Dolan, being that little kid in the candy store, money being no object, decided to throw the house at him. 5, 6, 7, 8. The number kept going up and up and up to the point where I was told, Phil Jackson told confidants laughingly, the guy just keeps coming. At some point in time, how the hell could I say no to this money? And ultimately it was $12 million per for a position that wasn't paying anybody over $2 in the league. And what does Phil Jackson do? He takes the money. His definition of a road trip was to be in L.A., where his ex-fiancée, now ex-fiancée, Jeannie Buss was. Or Montana. Never went anywhere else. Talking to the media, he couldn't find her for months at a time. Carmelo Anthony became the team spokesperson. Derek Fisher, Kurt Rambis, Jeff Horner said, who gives a damn what any of them had to say? No disrespect. This is not what ingratiates you to New Yorkers. This is not something that assuages their concerns. This is not something that enables them to get over the misery they've been subjected to for more than a decade. You need more than this. This is not something that enables them to get over the misery they've been subjected to for more than a decade. You need more than this. 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 You need more Damn it! You need more! This is not just about basketball. Have you seen Spike Lee? When's the last time you seen him smile? Do you have no idea how depressed he is? How many shots of John McEnroe do you need to see at Madison Square Garden before you know it ain't enough? This is not a joke. The culture of New York basketball is at stake. This is not a joke. It is not a joke. You gotta have somebody. It's not just about winning basketball games. We know you ain't gonna win but so many games right now, damn it. Porzingis can only take you so far. We're celebrating the fact that he showed up for an exit interview. Because he did it last year. With Phil and Hornacek. Here's a 22-year-old wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac, who told y'all grown men to kick rocks. His second year in the league. This is not a joke. You've got to do better. I don't say Mark Jackson because, he's better than this coach or better than that coach. He's damn good. Did a damn good job in Golden State. Steve Kerr modified their offense, got more movement of the basketball, but it helped that his players were more seasoned and experienced. But he'd be the first to tell you that Mark Jackson established a defensive foundation for the Golden State Warriors. Could Mark Jackson have done things differently in Golden State? You're damn right. Whether you agree or disagree, if the owner that employs you says that a whole bunch of people didn't like you, that's something that Mark Jackson has to make sure to rectify. And if the owners might want you to get rid of an assistant coach here or there, sometimes you got to capitulate. But let's not act like Mark Jackson ain't qualified. Let's not act like he didn't do a good job. Let's not act like he didn't have something to do with establishing a foundation that ultimately led to 2 championships in 3 years by the Golden State Warriors. Let's not act like he doesn't know what he's doing. Let's not act like he hasn't earned the right to be a prime candidate for some of these jobs. This interview with the New York Knicks is his second interview, and he's been gone for over 3 years. That is a disgrace. That is a disgrace. But none of it matters. That's all water under the bridge. Because here is the reality. When it comes to the Knicks, we ain't just talking about basketball. We're talking about acquiring a human being, whoever it may be, that gives us the opportunity to focus on basketball rather than James Dolan. Fizdale doesn't do that. Doc Rivers wouldn't do that. Mike Woodson wouldn't do that now. Because he's already been here. I'm talking about fresh blood from Queens, New York, O'Connell Park, St. John's University, Rookie of the Year with the New York Knicks franchise, who cares enough that when he speaks on the Knicks, we will know to listen to him. We will know that he means what he says, and he's not being muzzled by James Dolan. Now, what I said may very well cost Mark Jackson the job, because we all know how control is so important to James Dolan in Madison Square Garden. But I am telling you that's what's needed. Because New York Knicks fans ain't coming here to support the Knicks. They come to the games because it's something to do. You ain't really heard this city rise up and support this team. You know why? Because this city can't rise and believe in this team. We're perpetually on our backsides, if not on our backs, depressed and mired in misery because of the moribund, inept franchise this franchise has been for more than a decade. It is time not just to hire a basketball coach, but a person for New York basketball to speak on behalf of this city, to let us know they are serious and focused and determined to change its ways. That is the reason I go off in support of Mark Jackson. Because it's not just about basketball. It's about so much more. Because James Dolan has given us so much less than we really deserve. That's the truth. And right here, right now, I'll even apologize to the billionaire who got into it with Charles Oakley for months ago and all of this other stuff. I will apologize right here on the national airwaves to James Dolan. I don't mean to cast any aspersions on you, sir. You're an owner who never hesitates to cut the check. I'll give you credit for that. And you may or may not have had exactly or directly stuff to do with bringing this franchise down. But guess what? It sank when you arrived. The correlation is undeniable. It's time for a change. Steve Mills and Scott Perry get to do their job to the best of their ability if they're not distracted by us. And there is no coach that can distract us from them and James Dolan but Mark Jackson. He should be the next head coach for the New York Knicks. If he's not, whoever gets hired, I wish them nothing but the best of luck. Because I'm going to love the Knicks for life. But my God, they're disgusting. It's just too much to take. I never took Prozac or any kind of drug like that in my life. They might make me. They really might. 888, say ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Bradley Chubb, top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He'll be on with us next. Plus, I'm going to get into some NFL, NBA playoff talk before Mel Kiper Jr. comes on the show with us to start off hour number 2.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
It's my honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line. He is a defensive lineman for North Carolina State, the reigning ACC Defensive Player of the Year, a unanimous selection, first team All-American this past season. I'm talking about the one and only Bradley Chubb. He's on the line with yours truly right now. What's going on, Bradley? How are you, man? How's everything?
Man, nothing, man. Just enjoying this whole thing. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. First of all, before I even get into some football questions, let me ask you about yourself. You got a national audience, 250 plus markets across the United States of America, plus Sirius XM Channel 80 listening to you right now. Tell everybody out there, this guy that's projected to be a top 5 pick in this upcoming NFL draft, who is Bradley Chubb?
Bradley Chubb, just a guy that's down to earth guy. Very, very humble guy. Likes to have fun on the football field. Likes to do things and fun off the field as well. A guy that's gonna give you 100% on every play that he plays. A guy that's gonna high motor, like I said, just all out every opportunity I get, and a guy that's just always gonna give you 100%.
Now, you said you're humble. I can appreciate that. But in the same breath, you also said you like to have fun. You like to have fun. Is that the reason why you keep stealing quarterback's towels every time you sack them? I mean, is that why you keep doing that?
It's more mind games than fun when it comes to that. But yeah, I like to have fun with it on the junk talking and all that. So it's just how I play the game.
Now, when you say it's mind games, talk to me about that for a quick second. When you're talking about mind games, you do it with every quarterback, or is there something you see in certain quarterbacks that are weaker or stronger than others mentally, and you recognize that you can get to them by doing stuff like that? Explain that whole process to me.
So you really just got to fill it out. You got to have a lot of things in your head on what you want to do. So like, usually I start the game with the little towel thing. So if a quarterback is like, man, why does dude keep doing this, and like is really getting frustrated, then I keep on doing that. But if he's like brushes it off, laughs it off, and it's not bothering him, then I gotta move on to something else, like untying his shoe after like a play or something, like step on his toe or something like that. Just trying to get in their head, just to let them know I'm here the whole time. And yeah, it's just something I do. You can ask my teammates, like our starting quarterback, we cool, but he hates me just by the stuff we did in practice. Like we run past him in practice. Me and my boy BJ, we just run past him in practice, grab his jersey, and just stuff like that. So just always trying to be in their head and play mind games with them like that.
Bradley Chubb, All-American out of North Carolina State, projected to be a top 5 NFL pick in this upcoming draft. He's right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Obviously, you're touted as a top defensive player, one of the top defensive players in this year's draft. And everybody thinks that you have the skill set to make an immediate impact. What do you think about yourself, and why do you think you're going to be so good on the NFL level?
Just because I knew it, I got this chip on my shoulder. I knew what it took to get me to this position I am now. Like coming out of high school, I was like a 3 stars, 2 stars on some people's boards, and just not really highly recruited. So I had that work ethic that I instilled in myself, and my dad and my brother instilled in me as well. And it's just been something I've been working on throughout my 4 years at NC State. And then I feel like I'm gonna carry that on to the next level as well. I had great coaches who never let me get too high on myself as well. Even if I made the best play ever, I had coaches that would Nick pick the smallest thing to make sure I was always working and always trying to better myself. And so that's one thing I think I'm going to take over to the NFL as well.
What have NFL teams told you they see in you?
They say that, like I said, they see a player who plays hard every play, and a player who they feel like could change the program as well. And so I just my goal is just go in there and prove them right.
We're talking to Bradley Chubb right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. I'm looking at North Carolina State this year. Y'all won the Sun Bowl. Y'all beat Arizona State 52-31. Y'all finished with the 9-4 record. But I'm looking at your 4 losses. You lost in the opener to South Carolina. You gave up 35 points. You lost. I'm just looking at Notre Dame. You gave up 35 points. You lost to Clemson. You gave up 38 points. You lost to Wake Forest. You gave up 30 points. Talk to me about your defense overall. How did you feel about your performance in those losses? What did you learn from them? And overall, how did you feel about your defense at North Carolina State this year?
I mean, I love my defense at NC State this year. I mean, they were like my brothers. I had like personal relationships with everybody on that side of the ball. It was just those games. Those games. It was just one or two plays that just changed the whole outcome of the game, which is hard to say, like, after the season's over and after all that's over with. Just going back and watching that film, seeing those 2 plays that changed the whole momentum of the game. Just because, I mean, at times it would be like 21-21 in those games, and 2 plays give them 2 touchdowns. And the first game of the season was just a lot of first game errors and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But after that, it was just lack of focus on. I'm not calling anybody out, but it was just lack of focus on some people's part, and sometimes it was my part as well. So I mean, it's frustrating, but it was good to see some of the games that we pulled out, like the Louisville game, Florida State game. Those games came down to the wire, and we were able to pull those out. Boston College as well. So that whole group was fun to be around.
What do you think will be the toughest transition for you from the collegiate level to the pro level, Bradley?
I feel like just being I won't say being on my own, but being a grown man at that time, like having to juggle like taxes and water bill, phone bill, all that.
I'm just talking strictly about football. I'm just saying
just about football.
Just the transition, just from football, because I know those other things. I don't even wish that on you, because we all go through it. Let's slow your road to the adulthood stage. Take your time, bro, because once it's here, you can't go back.
Exactly.
All right, but talk to me about football, transitioning from collegiate to the pro level, football wise. What's going to be the toughest part for you?
I know the speed of the game is going to be a lot faster, and everybody's going to be athletic. Everybody's going to be the top of their class when they were coming out. So I can't rely just on athleticism. In some situations I did last year, but now I got to it's all got to be technique. So I got to fine tune my technique, pay attention to the littlest, smallest details I could possibly do, and make sure I get better each day. And no place for like being stagnant and complacent.
Right. Giants got the number 2 overall pick in this draft, just traded away JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul. A lot of people think that's a sign that they could potentially choose to take you. Mm-hmm. If they take you, you'll be in the New York market. This ain't Raleigh, North Carolina, bro. It's New York City. Right. Are you ready for that?
Yeah, I mean, I will be ready to whatever team drafts me. If it's New York, then I'm definitely going to be ready for that. Any city, I'll be ready for.
All the best to you, man. You've earned the right to be in this position. I'm proud of you, man. Keep up the great work. We'll talk soon. Good luck next week in the draft.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it. See you soon.
All right, buddy. All right, the one and only Bradley Chubb right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. It's presented by Progressive Home Insurance. Getting a quote is easier than ever before. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Oh, by the way, I want to introduce to you the all-new ESPN app, now with ESPN Plus. What's ESPN Plus? It's ESPN's new streaming service, available right in the ESPN app. With ESPN Plus, for just $4.99 per month, you get thousands of live sporting events, including MLB, NHL, MLS, and top-ranked boxing, and a full library of movies and documentaries, including the entire 30 for 30 collection. And our listeners can take advantage of a 30-day free trial of ESPN Plus presented by Amex by signing up within the ESPN app today. The all-new ESPN app featuring ESPN Plus. Check it out today. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Your calls in a minute. Remember, Bradley Chubb was just on. You heard what he had to say, plus some NBA action to get into based off of last night's playoff games. Not to mention Mark Jackson is interviewing right now for the New York Knicks job. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Let me go to my boy Champ, live from Detroit. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. I knew I'd hear from you today. What's going on, big time? Talk to me.
What's going on? How you doing?
I'm good, man. Go ahead. Let me know what's on your mind, because we've been talking about the playoffs for a while now. Give it to me straight. What's going on?
But I want to start with this coaching thing in New York. And what's interesting, no one's pointing out about James Dolan. I mean, he hires more minorities in leadership positions probably than anybody in sports history. You take a look at his tenure with the New York Knicks. The interesting piece about these coaching candidates with Fizdale, Jackson, and Stackhouse and Woodson, they're all minorities. Even they're black. You know, Israel, United States, but his ethnic background. My point is saying this. When you look at Mark Jackson and all
Champ, stand still, because we're losing you. We're losing you. We can't hear you clearly. Can you speak up now? Let's make sure. There
I'm
you
actually
go.
in the car right now. Can you hear me very clearly now?
Yeah,
no?
Go ahead. We can hear you now. Go ahead.
Okay. The interesting piece about the naysayers with Mark Jackson is that, you know, Steve Kerr is the reason why the Golden State Warriors are winning. But when you look back, go back in time, Paul Westhead won in L.A. Pat Riley hasn't never built a championship caliber team as a head coach and won an NBA title. Greg Popovich never built the Spurs into a championship caliber team. There was a 50-win, primarily basketball team with Bob Hill and guys like that. And when you look at this and you pay closely attention, Mark Jackson built Golden State. Draymond Green would have never been in the NBA if it wasn't for Mark Jackson. And Stackhouse been in the G League. He won a G League championship in Toronto. He got the Stackhouse Elite down in Atlanta. He knows how to evaluate talent. And it's a new day and age that's happening. If you take a look at what Memphis did with Penny Hardaway, they recognize that these guys have the relationships with the players. And the way you win championships, you need players to win. Ask Phil Jackson in New York. What did he accomplish? Absolutely nothing. So when you start, I think it's a great thing today for black head coaches to look at. No matter who gets the New York Knicks job, it's going to be a great day for the black coaches. My guy is Mark Jackson. I think he's going to get the head coaching job in New York. But the trump card in this whole thing is this. I believe 100% Kevin Durant will not end his career at Golden State, and the sweepstakes for Kevin Durant next summer, we're going to be with some of these guys as candidates with Stackhouse and Mark Jackson. And if you, the New York Knicks, if you can get an inside track on what guy has the relationship with Kevin Durant, that's the direction you need to go in. But I think no matter what happens, I think Mark signs with the New York Knicks, Stackhouse gets a head coaching job, Fizdale ends up probably in Cleveland. But here's another one. If the Clippers fire Doc Rivers and Fizdale go to the Clippers, look for LeBron James to go to Los Angeles, to the Los Angeles Clippers, and not the Lakers.
Well, listen, what if Magic Johnson decides, look, I didn't hire Luke Walton, and I appreciate what he's done, but I'm going to bring Fizdale to the Lakers. What if that happens?
Well, if that does happen, that means Magic has an inside track on LeBron. But I think the trump card with LeBron James is the no trade clause in Cleveland, and he's going to use that as a way, as an excuse not to sign back with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that's going to be his out in Cleveland, and he's going to blame it on Dan Gilbert. That's my prediction.
I don't think he has to. I think he has to do that if he decides to go someplace like Philly or someplace like that. But if LeBron James decides that he would rather go to L.A., I don't think anybody's going to fault him for that. I think that kind of seismic shift would be easier to stomach than him trying to go right up the road to Philadelphia.
Well, if he leaves Cleveland, it's obvious this man, as great as he is, one of the top 15 players of all time, talent-wise, top 3. It's obvious he's a ring chaser and so forth like that. But if he decides to go to L.A., that's his business, so be it. Hey, but back to the New York Knicks.
Real quick, go ahead.
Mark Jackson built Golden State. Steve Kerr, he listening. He know it. Tell Steve Kerr to take the lousiest team in basketball and show that he can coach.
But be nice, champ. The fact of the matter is Steve Kerr did take him to 3 straight NBA Finals, won 2 chips, improved them offensively, and gave Mark Jackson all the credit in the world for what he did as a coach, particularly on the defensive side of the ball from the moment that he's arrived. It's not like this man has ever failed to recognize the contribution that Mark Jackson made to this franchise. In fairness to Steve Kerr.
That's not... No, fairness to Steve Kerr. I didn't say that. But what I'm saying is, I'm talking about the naysayers, the guys in the media that saying Mark is not qualified. He's 100% qualified. And guess what? Next summer might be the best free agent period in NBA history. Not the one in 2010.
Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, Jimmy Butler, Kyrie Irving. You're absolutely right. Champ, I got to bounce, bro. Appreciate the call, my man. Thank you so much. 888. Say ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. Lots of stuff to get into. Hour number 2. More NBA playoff talk. What's going on in New England with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick? We got to get into that. But nothing comes before my next guest, the great Mel Kiper Jr., NFL draft guru, college football analyst extraordinaire. He's up next with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio to start off hour number 2. Don't touch that dial.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Squirrels are known for saving, but with the help of AARP, they won't be the only ones. From planning to budgeting, AARP is here to help you stretch your dollar further. So take on today and every day with AARP. Learn how at takeontoday.aarp.
This is the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
I'm Stephen A. Back to Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. Always my honor and privilege to have my next guest on the line, the ultimate draft guru, an authority on college football as far as I'm concerned, the great one himself. Mel Kiper Jr. is on the line with yours truly right now. What's going on, Mel? How you doing, buddy?
Stephen A., always a pleasure, my friend.
Talk to me about what's going on. Suddenly, everybody's starting to listen to you. You've been saying for weeks, if not months, it's not about Sam Darnold. It's not about Josh Rosen. It's not about Baker Mayfield. It's about this dude, Josh Allen, out of Wyoming. He's probably going to be, or should be, the number 1 pick in this NFL draft. It seems like folks are starting to latch on to that, Mel Kiper Jr. It's looking like this is going to happen. Talk to us about why you feel so high, or why you're so high on Josh Allen.
The bandwagon's full now, Stephen A. I'm telling you, it's everybody jumped on, and I think it took them a while to finally realize that this guy's a freak. And as you know, in the NBA, the freakish talents are the ones that usually get to be great, and it's rare to see talents like this. Stephen A., when you see those guys, I'm not going to throw the big names from the NBA out and say Josh Allen's going to be that good. We don't know, but to see him throw the football and the way he is, and every other quarterbacks, and all of him at the combine, and all all of him anytime they watch him. Sam Darnold doesn't throw at the combine, but stands there and watches Josh Allen throw the football. And you say it's more than just that. I get that. He did miss some open receivers. He did obviously take the coaching very well with Jordan Palmer. The way he played it at this program at Wyoming, in the 4 years before him, they were 15-33 with them. They're winning, and he comes back after being injured when they lost both games and wins the bowl game. To me, there's so much to like about him, Stephen A. It was amazing to me he had so many haters out there, and he still has some. But these people that want to act like Sam Darnold was perfect all year, it's ridiculous. I get sick and tired of hearing that. And I kept saying there's a reason why Josh Allen's in the mix to be number one, because Sam Darnold did not have the year expected.
Well, why have you gotten sick and tired of that? What did you see from Sam Darnold that turned you off so much?
Well, this is what happened. I went into the year saying he is going to be like Andrew Luck, and there's no competition for this guy. He's going to be like John Elway back in '83. I don't care what other quarterbacks are in this draft, because we knew Allen could be, and we knew Rosen could be, and whatever. I said there's nobody going to touch Sam Darnold. And then they start playing the games, and you start watching the guy, and you see some bad habits. He's holding the ball like a loaf of bread. He's getting turnover after turnover. He's making bad reads. He looks a little out of sorts, and that was not what we saw the year before when he had the offensive line. He had Juju Smith-Schuster, and everything was clicking, okay? But I still said, okay, in the Texas game, he dealt with some adversity, looked down at gun barrel, made throws. He did a lot of great things, but then he got delayed to that Washington State game on a Friday night, late September, and the wheels started to come off. Then the Notre Dame game at South Bend, then the Ohio State game at the end. I'm thinking, okay, he played great against Stanford in 2 games, and he had some games where he looked a little iffy, and some of the things, the unforced errors, were not to blame on anybody but him. You go to the Ohio State game, they probably were in that game, if not win it, had he not overthrown a wide-open receiver by air-mailing it by 5 yards. He had a fumble in the pocket, cost him 3, holding it like a loaf of bread, and then he has a pick 6 on a bad read. So, to me, what I was sick and tired of hearing was people saying he's perfect, and it shouldn't be any discussion that Sam Darnold's got to be the guy over everybody else, and he's magical doing this, he's magical doing that. Well, a lot of the magic ended this year with some of those games, and it wasn't the case. So, when you're seeing things that aren't reality, and you're hearing things that don't add up to what you're seeing, is when I kind of sound off a little bit. And I was sounding off, not to criticize Sam Darnold, say he doesn't belong up there in the discussion. He does. But he was not the quarterback this year at USC, Stephen A., that he was 2 seasons ago.
But knowing you the way that I do and listening to you as often as I listen to you, because I love to be educated, the bottom line is this. I sense that where you really turned off towards him, and I could be wrong about this, Mel Kiper, but I sense where you really turned off about him is when they beat UCLA. USC goes up against UCLA. He goes up against Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen throws for 421 yards in a losing effort. I didn't get the sense that you were satisfied with what you saw from Darnold in that game, and I thought you looked at that real intimately.
Yeah, I did, and that was another factor in there. I mean, I went on SportsCenter immediately after that game, and said, hey, he was outplayed. Rosen outplayed Sam Darnold in the crosstown rivalry. But then he bounces back to Stanford. He had the good game early against Stanford, the real good game late. You say, okay, there's Sam playing the way Sam can play. And then the Ohio State game, you're expecting. I guess you know what it might be, Steve. You expect so much, and when you don't get it, you react maybe a little negatively, more negatively than you normally would, especially when everybody's saying he's the guy. So I don't want to act like I'm here not bashing Sam Darnold. What I'm doing is looking realistically at what we saw and saying it didn't add up to what I was hearing, that it was a guarantee that how dare you put Josh Allen in a league with Sam Darnold? How dare you think that Josh Allen can be the number 1 pick? I'm hearing, and all I was saying is, I think he's the guy now. He's the one. But at the end of the day, I still like Sam Darnold a lot. I'd be surprised if he's not a really good starting quarterback in the NFL. But he's got some things to clean up, and if he's going to be great, you can't have what we saw this past year happening in the NFL. But to say Sam Darnold is a second-round pick or I'm not saying that. He's rated right behind Allen. But what I was trying to defend, which is kind of crazy, you have to defend possibly the number 1 pick in the draft, is against the haters that kept saying that Josh Allen, they looked at it 56% and said he just can't. Remember the Bull Durham with Nuke LaLoosh, the pitcher who couldn't, he was hitting the bull and he couldn't throw a strike and acting like he was that kind of guy. I said, he's not. You know what he is? He's the baseball version of Randy Johnson when Randy Johnson first came in. Okay, you remember he walked some guys, but he developed into a great pitcher. He's kind of like Matthew Stafford. He had a lot of haters. When I love Matthew Stafford, guys were hating on him, saying he was a thrower, not a pitcher. Only completed 57% of his passes coming out. But you can't teach freakish talent. You can't, if you can't coach up and make Josh Allen a great NFL quarterback, then those guys in the NFL shouldn't have coach before their name.
Well, we're talking to the great Mel Kiper Jr. right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. With that being said, two New York teams have the second and third overall pick. The Giants at number 2, the Jets at number 3 right now. If Josh Allen indeed ends up going at number 1, what does that mean for the number 2 and number 3 pick in your estimation?
Well, I think Dave Gettleman with the Giants now is the key entity. All eyes will be on the Giants if that happens, because if they take Saquon Barkley, who I think is the best player in the draft, at number 1, which they need to help out Eli Manning, and Dave Gettleman's already said, I want a guy going to wear that gold jacket. I want a guy that's a Hall of Famer. Well, you can't say that about anybody in this draft except a running back. You can say it about if you think he's going to be Zeke Elliott, Todd Gurley, Adrian Peterson, then you take Saquon Barkley. So, if that happens, then Sam Darnold, you have to believe, Stephen A., goes to the New York Jets at 3. Okay, then what happens at 4? Well, I would think Bradley Chubb goes to the Cleveland Browns to go work opposite Myles Garrett. Then Josh Rosen and Baker Mayfield are there at 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Does somebody trade up? Does Denver rethink things? Or do they trade the pick? Does somebody want to move up to get Rosen or Mayfield? Then it gets really interesting, because guess what? If you trade down at that point, you're passing on some really good players that are on the board, like Roquan Smith, the linebacker at Georgia, the 3 DBs, James Fitzpatrick and Ward, the guard Nelson. There's a lot of good players that are in that group where if you're moving down from there, you're losing one of those 4 or 5 really good players.
So it sounds like, definitively speaking, you're saying 2 things. Number 1, as a talent, Saquon Barkley is the best in the draft. And number 2, Sam Darnold is clearly the second quarterback that's going to be selected in this draft. Are those the 2 things that I can peel from what you just said?
Exactly, no question. I think if Barkley's not, a great back in this league, then I'll say, hey, if he's Trent Richardson, Trent Richardson was a top 5 pick and a bust to the Cleveland Browns. If he's that, then hey, we're wrong. But I think he certainly has the highest grade, and I think McShay has said it since Adrian Peterson. It's true. He's right there with Elliott and those guys. I don't know about higher than them, but he's right there, and he's expected to be great. And he's had the highest grade. He's been on number 1 on the board. That's what I've been consistent with, Stephen. I've had him number 1 on the board all year. Josh Allen and number 1 quarterback of late. And you remain consistent with that, but certainly if Darnold's there at 3, you might be thinking at Rosen, and even though, and here's a contradiction, Rosen outplayed Darnold in that game, but at the end of the day, the durability concern with Rosen to me is above everything else. It's, the shoulder 2 years ago, 32 days in concussion protocol, not able to play in their bowl game, that concerns me. So that's why Darnold would get the nod over Rosen, but hey, at the end of the day, Rosen did outplay him in that game.
Head coach for the New Orleans Saints, Sean Payton, basically gave a bust alert for this upcoming draft when it came to the quarterback position. He said, quote, I don't see Andrew Luck in this draft. I don't see Carson Wentz, who I liked a lot coming into the draft. I'd feel a little bit uneasy if I were at the top of this draft and I decided I had to have a quarterback. The pressure to get a quarterback is so great in this league. I get that, but we can't create them. Your response to that quote from Sean Payton, the head coach of the New Orleans Saints, what he said about these NFL quarterback draft prospects.
Well, we'll see. I mean, he's got a right to his opinion. He's not going to be up there picking. Maybe he's trying to get those guys to slide down a bit. Maybe they get down to a certain point, and all of a sudden there's Sean Payton jumping up to get one of them, And so sometimes you do things for a reason. You're trying to create a little bit of, hey, look what he's saying, and then start get a little negativity out there. I don't trust anything said this time of year. It's all said for a reason. Everybody's trying to do things and say things to help themselves, and that's all it's about. But hey, you have a right to your opinion. Say whatever you want. I don't listen to much this time of year. I try to put I try to just clog the ears up, not worry about anything you're hearing, because a lot of it is a lot of what. So I don't really listen to too much in April about prospects coming from the NFL.
Let me transition in this sense, Mel Kiper Jr., the great Mel Kiper Jr., right here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio. We've seen what this man did. He was a backup quarterback in New England. He's now the quarterback in San Francisco, just signed a $137.5 million 5-year deal after just 5 starts going undefeated. Who's the Jimmy Garoppolo of this draft? Who has the potential to be the Jimmy Garoppolo of this draft? We know about the top quarterbacks that are going to be picked. What about a guy that could fall in the 2nd or 3rd round? What about that guy? Who's that guy, Mel Kiper Jr.?
Did you just say Todd? Did you just say that?
No. I caught myself, man. I just interviewed him a few hours ago. I caught myself.
Todd. We got one from Stephen A.
Come on now.
I thought that was Caliendo, but it was Stephen A.
You know good and well I don't love anybody more than Mel Kiper Jr. Don't you stop.
Stephen A. Where's Max when I need him? Let me go to your question, Stephen A. That I would say Kyle Lauletta, like Garoppolo, out of the 1AA ranks out of Richmond. You wish his arm was just a little stronger, but he played well all year, that Senior Bowl week and all that, game MVP. He could be interesting, and I'll tell you, Luke Falk from Washington State, love his touchdown-interception ratio, love his completion percentage, love his cerebral approach. He had the injury all year with the hand. Luke Falk has kind of patterned himself after his hero, Tom Brady. So maybe the Patriots look at Luke Falk favorably. And I'll give you a fifth-round guy, Chase Litton out of Marshall. Big, strong-arm kid. Really needed another year. Comes out early. Well, he's not right ready, but if he had gone back and had a great year, probably a second-round pick in next year's draft. You get him in the fifth round, you got something to work with there.
I asked that question because you heard the news that Adam Schefter reported this morning about how Brady has not committed to playing the 2018 season. The New England Patriots have 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. What do you anticipate them doing based on their draft status? That's where
I think they're going to get one. They're going to get a quarterback. Now, the debate will be, and I guess everybody's talking about this, I don't think I would do it. I don't know if they will. I wouldn't give up all those picks to move up and get a quarterback because I think this team has needs at too many positions. They need to start fortifying that talent base with homegrown talent, and the way to do it is use those picks to try to help the offensive line, the linebacking core, the secondary, the wide receivers, every position, a variety of positions they need help. So I would do that, but use one of those picks maybe on a quarterback. I mentioned Lauletta and Falk, maybe in the second, third, fourth round area. Certainly for those guys, maybe second or third, Litton fifth. And then, like I say, if they want to move up, maybe it's 5-6 spots if Baker Mayfield slid down, Lamar Jackson, if they have a high grade on Lamar, then move up and get him ahead maybe of somebody else. When you think about who's ahead of them in the order of the way the draft is structured right now, that would be a team in their division, the Buffalo Bills, who you keep hearing may have an interest in Lamar Jackson. So if you're New England at 23, do you move ahead of Buffalo to get Lamar Jackson? Do you feel he can be the heir apparent to Tom Brady? Do you move up to get Mayfield? Drops to around 10. Do you move ahead of Miami to get him? But it would be costly, too costly for me. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I do think, Stephen A., to answer your question, they get a quarterback with one of those picks, one of those 4 picks, 2 first and 2 seconds. I think one will be a quarterback.
That was the great Mel Kiper Jr. Not Todd, not some dude named Todd. That was the great Mel Kiper Jr. right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. Appreciate you, buddy, as always. Thanks so much, man.
Take care, Max.
The one and only Mel Kiper Jr. right here with Stephen A. All right, buddy. All right, take it easy, man. Mel Kiper Jr. right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. My Lord, my brain is just computing the knowledge that this man drops. He's been doing it forever, since the 80s, for crying out loud. He is simply the best. The one and only Mel Kiper Jr. right here with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. You heard what he said. Josh Allen going number 1. That probably means Saquon Barkley's going number 2. That means that Sam Darnold out of USC will land with the New York Jets at number 3. Okay? Who knows what's going to happen to Josh Rosen after that? Particularly when you got Baker Mayfield to consider. It's getting very, very interesting. We're a week away from the NFL draft. You're listening live to Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. By the way, get the feeling of being rewarded with gold status at Shell with the Fuel Rewards program. Download the Fuel Rewards app, join and start saving 5 cents a gallon today. Mel Kiper Jr. By the way, the latest First Draft podcast with Kiper and Todd McShay is out today. Listen on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. One of the other items that I wanted to make sure to get into was Mr. Tom Brady. According to Adam Schefter, a report came out today that Tom Brady hasn't committed to playing the 2018 season. Hasn't committed to playing. And things are falling apart in New England. It's falling apart by the seams. for Bill Belichick, as far as I'm concerned. They've got 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks. They clearly are going to have to draft a quarterback. They gave up Jimmy Garoppolo, which is something Bill Belichick did not want to do, but Mr. Kraft made him do because he was showing his faith in Tom Brady. I think this story is much ado about nothing because I don't think there's any way in hell that Mr. Kraft makes Bill Belichick make this move in trading and moving Jimmy Garoppolo, showing his faith in Tom Brady, and then Tom Brady turns around and leaves New England. I don't believe it. Now, if Jimmy Garoppolo was still there, that would be another matter entirely. But the fact that Mr. Kraft made Bill Belichick get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tom Brady is still there, okay, I think it's all right. But it is interesting to point to. I can tell you that much. And if I'm going to talk about Bill Belichick and the Patriots, who better to talk to than my man Carlton in Tampa, the ultimate critic of Bill Belichick. There is no greater critic of Bill Belichick than my man Carlton, formerly from Massachusetts, now retired in Tampa, Florida. He is live with Stephen A. What's up, Carlton?
Hey, first off, my friend, the Cleveland Browns should take Saquon Barkley with the number 1 pick. Tyrod Taylor is a fine quarterback and teamed up with Josh Gordon and Jarvis Landry and all those second and third year receivers they got on the Cleveland Browns. They're going to be just fine. They need Barkley, and then I'd take either Fitzpatrick or Nelson with that 4th pick in the draft.
Okay.
And some team is going to wake up in the next 8 days, Stephen A., and actually go out and acquire Nick Foles for one of these top picks in the first round. Some team's going to be smart enough to realize there's a guy that has a higher probability of success than all these guys in the draft that is probably available for the right price. But let's get into the Tom Brady, Adam Schefter, on your program today. I want to help you guys connect the dots, Stephen A.
Sure.
3 years ago, Bill Belichick threw Tom Brady under the bus for Bill Belichick's second major cheating scandal in the NFL, Deflategate. And that ticked off Tom Brady to no end. And then last fall, according to ESPN, and I'm not sure they're right about this, but according to ESPN, Bill Belichick's ready to move on from Tom Brady. He's ready to anoint Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brady went to Kraft, and Kraft overruled Belichick and made him move Garoppolo, okay? So that enhanced the rift. And then in the Super Bowl, good old Bill Belichick decides he's smarter than everybody else, and he's going to sit his top cornerback, Malcolm Butler, and he blows the Super Bowl, costing everybody on that team a Super Bowl ring, all right? And so now there's an open revolt among the players of the New England Patriots against Bill Belichick. And the next time Max on your show brings up this nonsense of Belichick's genius in the Giants-Bills game when Bill Belichick decided to take away Jim Kelly's passing attack and dare them to run, could you remind Max that, first off, the only reason they won the game is because Scott Norwood missed the game-ending field goal? And you could also remind Max that strategy actually worked. Whereas in the Philadelphia Eagles Super Bowl, they were getting torched up and down the field by Nick Foles. Nick Foles and the Eagles scored on 8 of 10 possessions.
Well, you don't have to. There's no convincing where I'm concerned. Malcolm Butler played 97.8% of the snaps during the regular season, 100% of the snaps in the postseason, and then suddenly you bench him for the entire Super Bowl. But it wasn't personal. It was what was in the best interest of trying to win a football game. That is a bunch of hogwash. It's nonsense, and I never wanted to hear from anybody, which is why I'm glad you bring it up. I'm still ticked off at Bill Belichick over that.
It was a personal vendetta against Malcolm Butler because they tried to, if you remember last spring when he was restricted free, they tried to cram him down on a low-value contract, and he wouldn't go along with it. And after that, Bill Belichick put him in the dog camp, in the negative camp, because he wouldn't kowtow to Belichick. And that's why he ended up deciding, I'm going to show this guy who's boss in the Super Bowl and the rest of my locker room as well. And he pulled off a blunder. He thought he was going to get away with it. He actually thought he was still going to win the game, but it ended up costing him the game. All right. And the next time Molly brings up the fact that Malcolm Butler missed the team playing that week of the Super Bowl,
Lord.
we were reminded that he was in the hospital with the flu the night before that flight.
That is correct.
It had nothing to do with his dereliction or whatever, which Molly wants to intimate all the time.
But let me ask you this question, Carlton, because I got to get ready to go. Does it come down to this? Do you believe that Tom Brady is seriously contemplating not playing for the 2018 season? Because if he doesn't play, he doesn't just hurt Bill Belichick and the Patriots. He hurts Robert Kraft.
I believe he's exercising whatever power he can to move Belichick out the door. And I believe that Kraft is halfway there anyway because of what he did to Malcolm Butler after the Super Bowl, smearing him in the press. All the stories about weed use and altercations with coaches and late for meetings and all the garbage which all of his teammates refuted when they came to his support on social media. So I think that ticked off Kraft. Obviously, the loss of the Super Bowl ticked off Kraft.
That's right.
So I think Brady's trying to move him out.
And remember one thing. We even have NFL analysts, some of who work for our network. These are Patriots that have spoken out in support of Malcolm Butler. They were flabbergasted as to why Malcolm Butler didn't play in the Super Bowl. So this is uncharted territory as far as I'm concerned, where Bill Belichick is concerned, because I've never heard so many people speak against a decision Bill Belichick has made the way they spoke against his Malcolm Butler decision. And I applaud all of them for doing so.
It's now that the ESPN outside the line guys should really reiterate or reestablish all their contacts that they had 3 years ago in Deflategate. Because now I think somebody might be willing to open up and actually point the finger where it should have been, which is directly at Bill Belichick.
I knew you were going there. Have a good day, buddy. I always appreciate you calling, Carlton. Thanks so much.
I'm a one-trick pony. Literally. I show up at kids' parties and act cute. That's pretty much it. So excuse me for being bitter when Geico says not only could we save you money on car insurance, but we do more. Like give you 24/7 access online, over the phone, or even via our award-winning mobile app. Well, ooh la la. Aren't they multi-talented? Hey, I said organic carrots.
Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
You're listening to the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Let's go to LJ in Houston. You're live with Stephen A. on ESPN Radio. What's up?
Good afternoon, Stephen A.
Talk to me, bro.
I wanted to talk to you before the playoffs started to give you my thoughts on New Orleans and Portland series, because I felt that was a bad matchup for Portland, considering Rondo's championship experience and the fact that they traded to get Mirotic. They gave up 3 players and a first-round pick.
Let me say this to you. Let me say this to you. You don't even have to explain yourself, because you alluded to it weeks ago, and I remember you, and you were giving the Pelicans props then. So I'm not about to rob you of that right now. You deserve props for that, because you were telling me about the Pelicans weeks ago. You may not remember it, but you didn't just think it. You actually called up to this radio station and said it even before the playoffs began. So I remember you, LJ.
Appreciate that, Stephen A. And also, let's just hypothetically speak that New Orleans gets past them and gets to Golden State. Do you think the same problems will be for Steph Curry and Klay Thompson? Drew Holiday and Rondo playing off the ball?
Well, here's the problem. Here's the biggest problem. We just got news this morning that Steph Curry's going to be out another 3 weeks. So there's a huge chance that New Orleans, if they win this series, and I predict they will now, it's a huge chance they'll end up going against Golden State without Steph Curry. Which means that if you're Golden State without Steph Curry, it's Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson. But I still think that they don't have enough firepower to beat Golden State. But it'll be interesting, no question, because Drew Holiday is going to be all over. He's going to try to be all over Klay Thompson, and Rondo simply cannot be underestimated. Cannot be. So it'll be an interesting series. That series can end up going deep with the absence of Steph Curry. You're right about that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I got some criticism about Steph Curry. I want to talk about it another day, but I can give you a little insight on it, because he's a 2-time MVP with 2 championships, but he doesn't have an NBA Finals MVP. So do you think that is a little bit of criticism or pressure this year?
I don't think
he doesn't get that again.
I think it's something that's noticeable, but I don't think it's necessarily criticism. When you consider how prolific Klay Thompson and Kevin Durant have the capabilities of being, and then you take into account Andre Iguodala, let's understand why Andre Iguodala was the MVP for their first championship. What happens is you had Klay and Steph, who you knew were stars. And so what Cleveland did was key on it and essentially dared Andre Iguodala to shoot the ball. So Andre Iguodala was making shots that more than half the time were uncontested. He just made them to his credit. So when you look at it from that perspective, that had a lot to do with him being the MVP. See, even though he got the MVP award, it doesn't take away from what Steph did, because if Steph hadn't been as formidable as he was and Klay Thompson wasn't as formidable as he was, they would not have felt the need to focus on them so much that they were willing to leave Iguodala open. They would have been able to focus on Iguodala more. But because of Steph Curry's greatness, they couldn't afford to do that, and they had to leave somebody open and dare them to produce. And Andre Iguodala stepped up and produced. So Steph Curry deserves credit to some degree anyway for what happened with Andre Iguodala.
Okay. Well, we'll see this year. Like you said, the injury got him out another 3 weeks, so I think it's pressure on him to come back from this injury. And
I don't think it's pressure.
He is a two-time MVP.
It's never any pressure to come back from an injury if you're truly injured. Once you come back, you have to perform. But there's never, if you're hurt, bro. If you heard, like for example, the reason why Kawhi Leonard is a story is because it appears as if you have folks within the Spurs organization that's questioning the legitimacy of his injury. I'm talking about, some of the statements from Popovich. Not that he ever questioned Kawhi Leonard, but I'm talking about Tony Parker and others calling a players-only meeting and confronting Kawhi Leonard. Those kind of things. I'm talking about Greg Popovich's apparent exasperation over the whole ordeal. You've got people that are giving you the impression there are question marks as to how significant the injury to Kawhi Leonard is. That's entirely different than Steph Curry. Steph Curry, everybody knows he's injured. Nobody's questioning it. And everybody knows how badly and how desperately he would love to play. Similar in a roundabout way to Joel Embiid. Ain't nobody questioning his injury. He wants to play. He's being restrained from playing. He's being held back. But Joel Embiid wants to play. There's a difference between wanting to play and not being allowed to play because of your injuries, and you having people questioning the legitimacy of your injuries. Nobody's doing that with Steph Curry, LJ.
Okay, can I ask you one more question?
Real quick. Go ahead. Real quick.
Do you think James Harden will be a unanimous MVP?
No. I think LeBron will get some votes. I think that Anthony Davis will get a couple. But I believe when all is said, and Russell Westbrook as well, but I believe when all is said and done, James Harden will capture his first league MVP honors. Houston has just been too great this year, and so has he. And he'll deserve it, by the way. He absolutely positively will. Appreciate the call, man. Let's go to Chris in L.A. You're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, Stephen A. Wow, LJ touched on a lot of questions I was going to ask you. But I'm not going to harp on what I told you regarding the New Orleans, Portland series.
You did.
Told you that was coming.
You're another one. You're another one. You and LJ are the two guys. You and LJ are the two guys that kept bringing up Rondo and Drew Holiday. I give y'all all the credit in the world. Absolutely true.
Great minds think alike, Stephen A. But I have a question for you regarding this Indiana-Cleveland game tonight. I think Cleveland get it done, but Stephen A., I won't be surprised if Indiana wins tonight. And I'll tell you why. Because the guys when you and I talked when the trade first happened, you thought that Cleveland was so much better and they got younger and they got quicker and all that good stuff. But what people fail to realize is playoff atmosphere is a lot different than the regular season. So a lot of those shots that were falling and the plays that those guys are making in the regular season are a lot tougher this time of year, and there's more pressure playing alongside the best in the world. So
let's be clear. Let's be clear about my position. They got younger and they had more fresh, able bodies to defend. I thought in that regard they got better. I also looked at the Eastern Conference and said, you got to show me that somebody can beat LeBron, the best 4 out of 7, before I believe it in the East, because I just don't believe it and I just don't see it. That's what I said. That's how I feel. I still feel that way.
Oh, yeah, I got you. And I understand that. And one more thing, I have a question regarding the Wizards. Wizards has been one of your sleeper teams for I don't know how long, but I just you know what, Stephen A., but
I've given up on them. I've given up on them. I'm done with them, Chris. I think they might get swept, man.
Yeah. I don't know about swept. They'll get one. They'll get one at home. Toronto's just a better team. But I have a question for you regarding Beal and Wall playing together. Do you genuinely believe they enjoy playing well together? I think Beal was more happy when John Wall was out, but he will probably never admit that. But I feel like he had more control of the team when John was out. He may not be able to win without John, but he felt he had more control of his team, and they knew everything falls back on him.
I feel that way too. Listen. Here's the deal. John Wall's the star of the team. They don't look happy playing together, number one. Number two, there's no excuse for Beal for them to be a minus 34 with Beal on the floor. That is just a disgrace. That is just embarrassing. He is too good. He is too gifted to find himself in that kind of situation. That is an atrocious situation to find himself in. He should be ashamed of himself. And I love Bradley Beal. I really do. As a player and as a person. He's got a smooth stroke and what have you. But he's been a model of inconsistency. He doesn't show up in the fourth quarter half the time. And on top of it all, you are minus 34 on the floor. There's no excuse for it, Chris. I'm not letting him off the hook. It's just that simple to me. I am sorry. I got to bounce, though. I appreciate the call. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. And I'm not saying that Washington's going to get swept. I think they can win a game, but I think they have to win game 3 Friday night. Otherwise, this series is over Sunday. I think this season is pretty much done. And if that happens, you're going to have to move one of them. Now, Beal should be the one that's moved if you have to move the two because Wall is better. The problem is you can get more for Wall than you can for Beal. And that's where it really becomes problematic for you. But that's just my thought process.
Guess what? You're in the middle of the Stephen A. Smith Show podcast.
Damn it, I mean it! Back to your call before we get on out of here for the day. Steve in Texas, you're live with Stephen A. Talk to me.
Hey, how you doing, Stephen A., man? We love you down here in Austin, baby.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. I love Austin, too. One of my best friends in the world. My childhood buddy lives down there. His name is Mark McKnight. If he's listening, the city of Austin, if you are listening, that's my brother, Mark McKnight. Great, great guy. Love you, bro. Go ahead, Steve.
Right on. I got 2 quick questions. First question, what do you think the San Antonio Spurs should do in the offseason? Should they just go ahead with what they have, or should they look for a big name?
Keep Kawhi. There's only one condition under which you let go of Kawhi Leonard, which is not going to happen. If the Boston Celtics are willing to trade both Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum for Kawhi Leonard, you can do that. Other than that, you hold on to Kawhi Leonard for dear life.
Okay, right on. My second question, it's mostly a college basketball question, but I want to ask you because I know how much you admire Shaka Smart. So do you think it's time for him to start making some noise in the Big 12 with this being his 3rd and 4th year?
Yes. What I'm looking for him to make more noise most is in recruiting. I think Texas is a fabulous university. Austin, Texas is a phenomenal city. And I think that he's proven himself what he did at VCU, and getting y'all to the NCAA tournament recently. I think that even though obviously he's in the same conference as somebody like Bill Self, I think it's time for him to start making the kind of noise that really gives a challenge to Bill Self and his supremacy at Kansas.
Right. Cause you see the improvement that's happening on the court. And every time you go to the games, he packs the house.
Yes.
And you see the improvement and the he has a great recruiting class coming in.
Well, listen, we got to talk about all of this as a later date. I appreciate where you're coming from, Steve, and I thank you for calling, but I'm a believer in Shaka Smart, and I want y'all down there to support him. But you are right. It is time for him to make even more noise than he already has. I think he can, and I think he will do it. Steve, thank you for calling into the show, man. Let's go to Ethan in Dallas. You're live with Stephen A. Go ahead, Ethan.
Hey, Stephen A., big fan. I got 2 quick points I want to make, if you don't mind. The first one is tonight's game, Cavs and Pacers. No, it's a must win for the Pacers because everyone knows that everyone's, the fake panic that LeBron's in trouble, and yeah, he might be, but it's LeBron James. Pacers need to go up 2-0 because LeBron James can do anything. So they need to go up 2-0 quickly and force him to win 2 games at their place.
What's your second point real quick? Go ahead.
The second point is LeBron needs to stop trying to get his guys involved too much. Quit trying to chase those triple doubles because that's what he's trying to do. If nobody can stop him, not a Miles Turner, Bogdanovich, not even close. He needs to go down low in the post, and he needs to work his magic. Ethan, 270 pounds.
Ethan, I got to run. I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, just want y'all to know, Canelo Alvarez basically capitulated to the Nevada State Athletic Commission. As a result, he's only going to be suspended 6 months from the date of his last positive test, which means he'll be eligible to fight again in August, which means that, Latino Independence Day, Hispanic Independence Day, in September, you can expect a rematch between Triple G and Canelo Alvarez to take place as of then. Just want to say that. Jesse in San Diego, you got like 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Oh, well, first of all, big fan, Stephen A. Pleasure to be with you. I just wanted to ask, what are your thoughts about this? Is it necessary? Is it fair? Because I remember back in the end of March when the temporary suspension was talked about. You said it was ridiculous because, the drug, it's used in a lot of countries, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the big deal about it is that the United States talks about, like, why they consider it illegal. It's because of its side effects.
Okay.
So,
well, listen, I'm not a doctor. The side effects, I don't know the specifics about. What I will tell you is that at the end of the day, I wish the fight was taking place in May, but since it's going to now take place in all likelihood in September, assuming Triple G wins his fight on May 5th, so be it. I just got to wait a few extra months for the fight. As long as the fight is going to happen before this year's out, I'm not going to trip over it. NBA playoff action tonight. Make sure you don't miss it. I'll talk to you in 22 hours. Until then, peace and love.
That's just a sample of what you'll hear on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Weekdays at 1 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.